Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and today is the day Tu B'Shvat, which is the birthday of the trees in Hebrew. Literally, it means Tu B'Shvat means 15th of Shvat, which is the middle of the month, the full moon of Shvat. And it's the time where it is said that the trees, though they lie dormant in the winter in the northern hemisphere, the sap begins to rise. And it's a time of celebration where we celebrate the different types of fruit that come from those trees. And initially it was a tax holiday where you would tax the fruit from the trees. Those specific trees had to reach a certain age before that fruit could be taxed. So sort of a complicated history around Tu B'Shvat. These days we celebrate it as a time of celebrating the trees. In my household, in my family, we think about the feminine divine who dwells within the trees, the Asherah. And we celebrate by eating fruit. We eat fruit that has a rind on it to represent that part of us that needs protecting from the outside. Fruit that has a pit in it to represent that part of us that has a solid core. Fruit that can be eaten in its entirety, like a fig or an apple, and fruit that just has an essence and a scent to represent spirit. So today we're going to do a reading. I'm going to pull out 3 cards from the Wildwood tarot deck, and then we'll do some Hebrunes and maybe a Nordic rune or 2, and one of our sovereign oracle cards. So let's get started straight away. I'm going to just set these things off to the side, and we'll shuffle the tarot and see which 3 cards come out, and then you'll have an opportunity to choose which card is drawing you into the reading. And then we'll go from there. So let's just shuffle a little bit and think about the trees. I love that this deck has a double tree, both branches going up and branches going down, because it's like the branches of the tree going up to the divine and the branches going into the earth as roots. And in us as well, the divine goes all directions. Let's see which 3 cards want to come out today. There's number 1. Number 2. Oops, too many. Sloppy shuffling this morning. And I think this is number 3. All right. Let's take a look and see which cards we have today. Card number 1 is the 9 of Arrows, and it says dedication. Card number 2 is the Archer. And card number 3, the King of Bows, Fox. All right. So take a minute to determine which of these cards is calling you in today. Number 1 is the 9 of Arrows. Number 2 is the Archer. And number 3 is the Knight of Bows. And I'll put the timestamps down below, and I will see you in your separate readings. Welcome, card number 1. Those of you who chose the 9 of Arrows, this is your card, and it says dedication. So 9 of Arrows corresponds in the traditional tarot to the 9 of Swords. In this particular card, we have a maiden, it looks like, wearing a blue dress with a red mantle over it. She is standing in the woods near a tree, near a very large tree, maybe even in the tree, it's hard to tell. And she's holding her bow like an instrument, which is interesting because when you have a bowed instrument, you usually play it with the bow, not with the arrow, and not with the instrument, it goes the other way. It's a really interesting image where she is being fired at by somebody. There are arrows in the air all around her, and they've all missed. None of them have hit her. She has one in her hand as if she's maybe caught it in flight, and is using it like a bow to play her bow rather than shooting back. She's got her eyes closed in a sort of contemplative or peaceful way. I think this is a beautiful card, and it says dedication at the bottom. She's dedicated to her position in this place, in this card. As I said, there are 8 arrows that are flying past her, missing her. In the traditional 9 of Swords, you see a person in their bed who is worried. They're contemplating all the swords that are hanging on the wall behind them with worry. And in contrast, this woman does not look worried at all. She looks content and at peace, holding her position safe within the tree as arrows go flying past. And in fact, using one of those arrows to create something, music, or in some way just holding it gently, not allowing the arrows to hit her and suffer, but to take some of that is being flung at her and using it for her own purposes of peace. So that's the first message I'm getting here, your dedication to your position being held in the tree of life, in the tree, the arms of the Asherah, gives you a sense of peace regardless of what is being flung at you. And in fact, it's possible to even reach out and grab one of those sharp weapons of destruction and turn it into an implement of peace in your life. So that's our first message here. For those of you who chose 9 of Arrows, card number 1, dedication. You've got some sort of dedication. Both the Asherah is dedicated to you, and you are dedicated to your place of peace within her. We're going to just pull out 3 Hebrunes, and I think I'll do 3 Nordic runes as well today. So let's see what's up and what is a challenge and what is our advice here. So we have the letter Mem. We have the letter Dalet, and we have the letter Tsadi. And then we'll do some Nordic runes as well. We have the Tiwaz at the top. Oh, this one really wanted to come out. We have Fehu. And we have Degaz. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see these a little more clearly. All right. On the left side, we have the letter Mem that is representing our current situation in this position on this birthday of the trees. And the letter Mem is a gestation. It's the number 40 in Gematria. So it's representing the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. It's a womb space, and it's the mother letter of water. And this is significant because the birthday of the trees, the Tu B'Shvat, is the day where it said the water begins to rise in the trees, the sap begins to rise in the trees. There's a story from the High Gaon that says, in the month of Shvat, 3 coals are thrown down from heaven. The first is on the 7th of Shvat, and it is said to warm the air in the month. The second coal is thrown down on the 15th Shvat, or Tu B'Shvat, the middle of the month, and it is said to warm the water. The water begins to rise in the trees. And then the third coal is thrown down on the 23rd of Shvat, and it is to warm the earth. So we've got the mother letter of water here, warming the water within the trees. So even though it's cold outside and the trees are bare, that sap begins to come through the roots, up the trunk, and starts to nourish what will be bud, and what will be leaf, and what will be flower, and then eventually what will be fruit. And that's where we are right now. We're in this gestation period where we're waiting. We're in this womb space where there's the waters of life are here, and they're nourishing, surrounding us like this tree is surrounding this character on the card. It's keeping us alive in a time of waiting. And I think that's the first message we've got here, is that we are in a period of gestation. And it's important to understand that. And it may be a long gestation. 40 weeks is long. 40 years in the wilderness is long. We may be traveling, and we may be experiencing some discomfort. But know that the waters of life, Mayim Chaim, are here under the surface, nourishing us, even with our eyes closed, even when we can't see it. On the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Tiwaz. I'll hold that up because it's a little hard to see. It's looks like a little arrow pointing up, which is interesting because we've got this 9 of arrows. Here's our 10th arrow. And the 10 always symbolizes that which is coming to an end. Tiwaz is representative Tyr, the warrior god. Not simply the warrior god, but he was a god of dedication. In fact, that's what it says on the card. A god of duty, taking care of what needs to be done. It can be about direct action, but I think in this case, since we have this peaceful dedication on the part of the character, it's about showing up and doing what needs to be done, even in the face of difficulties, even in the face of arrows being shot at you. That you have this one arrow that is here serving as a calming, almost harp-like instrument that is giving peace in the midst of a challenging situation. And that's where you are with regards to the current moment, which is this top letter in both these sides of the reading, gestation and dedication or duty, taking care of your business. In the center, our center position here represents that which is a fear or a challenge. On the Hebrew side, we have the Dalet. Dalet is a doorway. So it's about transformation, about passing from one place to another. It's seen as a doorway, like a literal doorway, where you're going through a space from the home to the outside, from one room to another, but also as a metaphorical doorway where we're transitioning. And it can be a birth canal, sometimes seen as the delta of Venus, which is the feminine genitalia through which all things are born. And it's interesting because we've got the mem up here showing that womb space. The Dalet is that opening space that we're allowed to birth out of. And a birth can seem like a death, right? So you've got an infant who is in utero, has known no other world. When they are born, there's this huge amount of activity, at the very least, but a transition that's huge. Like you're in a place you've only been, and then suddenly you're forced out into the world, and it can feel like a death. On the other end, when we are dying, we don't know what comes on the other side. So Dalet is that transition place. I correspond it to the death card in tarot because of that transitional momentum that comes with the Dalet. But it's being in that liminal space. And so with regards to this particular reading, The challenge or the fear here is, what will that transition entail? How difficult will it be to go through what we're going through here? And what comes on the other side? We don't know. So there's a fear or a challenge around both making the decision to step through the doorway and not knowing what's on the other side. On the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Fehu. And Fehu is the letter that represents worth, wealth and worth. Not money exactly, but that which we tend. What is it we're taking care of? You've got this Tiwaz here, which is taking care of your business. What is your business? Is it cattle? This is about cattle. This is about the herd that you tend. What is it you're taking care of that brings you worth and value in your life? So our challenge or our fear here is that the thing that we're trying to tend, our business that we're taking care of, is maybe we're not qualified to take care of it, or maybe it's not going the way we want, or even if we take care of it, will we have the ability to extract worth from it? And I think, this is a valid fear, the tending of our, what we consider valuable, and it can be a spiritual value or a connectional value, like if we tend friendship, do we tend family? But it still can be challenging, and this is the position of the fear or challenge. So I'm saying the challenge here is, how do we tend what we're tending? This card, this person is tending to the tree and to herself and to her sense of peace as all these arrows come at her. And the challenge is, how do I maintain my sense of peace in the sense of this war or these arrows being flung at you? How do you tend your peace and find your own worth and value in amongst being attacked? And then we bring ourselves down to the bottom letter. On the Hebrew side, we have the Tzadi. And Tzadi is the letter that's affiliated with the month of Shvat. So I love this. This is the outcome or advice for our month, or for this part of our month. Tzadi is the tree. And you can see that it looks like a tree, where it has this root system at the bottom and a trunk coming up, a couple of branches, and maybe even some leaves or fruit at the top. Tzadi is the letter that begins the word tzaddik or tzedek, justice and righteousness. So our outcome and our advice here is to lean toward justice and find solidity and growth in that transition. The tree is a stable factor, and it grows tall and strong. This is, again, representative of the month of Shvat, which is the birthday of the trees, and it's affiliated with the tribe of Asher. Asher, which means happy and joyful, and is a kind of a short form of Asherah. There's some who believe that Zilpah, Asher's mother, named him after the Asherah, the goddess who dwells within the trees. The flag of the tribe of Asher is a tree, and it's about, again, seeking justice and happiness. Asher is happy. So our outcome on the Hebrew side is the Asherah herself, the pull toward justice, the stability of the tree. And one of the things I love about the letter Tzadi also is that if you look at it, it looks like a little bit like the letter Nun, which is very bent over, and the letter Yud in the upper right corner. Nun, which represents humility, and Yud, which represents a seed, and also the first letter of the divine name. So we have to come into the justice with humility and divinity and the potential for new growth. So justice can sometimes seem like judgment, which is a different, slightly different factor. Justice is finding our own humility and planting a seed with that, making sure that we're coming in with humility, with divinity at our back, in order to plant the justice that we want to see in the world, or to usher in the justice of the moment. On the right side, as I said, we have Degaz, and Degaz is the dawn. It's the breaking of the light. So it's full illumination. And it's, like I said, this is a challenging position to be in, this sense of dedication in the midst of hostility. But the outcome here, if we can maintain our sense of worth and our sense of tending what's important, which is the serenity and the peace in it, we'll have illumination at the end. And I think this is a lovely message for whoever has chosen this card, that we are in this position of attack, and we could go into a panic or worry, but instead grabbing one of those arrows, finding peace and making some kind of tone or music with it, feeling ourselves held in the branches of the Asherah, knowing we're in a time of dedication, that we're tending to what needs to be tended, that our challenge is going through the doorway and finding ourselves in that liminal space, that transitional space, finding our worth and our wealth in the tending of the thing, and coming out to a place of justice and illumination on the other side. I'm going to back this out just a little bit because I want to put down one more card from the Sovereign Oracle deck to get our last message for those of you who chose pile number 1. There it is. And your card says decoy. Interesting. Look for the true culprit. Self-sabotage may be at work. Evaluate if it's something you really need to do, or if it's a tempting distraction. Decoy. So that message to me is saying that, be aware of where those arrows are coming from. Are they a self-sabotage rather than, we may feel like we're being attacked from outside, but what's our part in it? Look for the true culprit. We might assume that these arrows are coming from a specific direction, but I love that she's got her eyes closed here, that maybe looking for the true culprit is sitting in some sort of contemplation, listening to the tree that is holding us and deciding, what have we done? Have we put ourselves in a place where we're inviting those arrows in? Are we being able to understand that these arrows may be coming from our own psyche? And evaluating whether this is something we need to do. Do we need to stay in this conflict? Do we need to, are we finding it temptingly distracting to rile things up? Or can we grasp onto some of those arrows and make something beautiful from it? Really learn and grow, tend our peace. Again, step through that doorway and find justice and be illuminated. I love that it's kind of a starburst on it too, like there's some illumination coming in. So sit with this and find if there's something that is distracting or serving as a decoy for what's really going on under the surface. And that's your message for those of you who chose card number 1, the 9 of Arrows, dedication at this time of Tu B'Shvat, as the sap is rising and is starting to set wheels in motion during this gestation, where the buds are coming soon, and then the leaf, and then the flower, and then the fruit. So before things get too set, take some time in this quiet place to contemplate what exactly is your role and how can you sit with that in your gestation. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, card number 2. Those of you chose the Archer. This is the 7th card in the deck, the Wildwood Tarot deck. And the number 7 is generally affiliated with the Chariot in traditional tarot. And the Chariot is all about moving forward with, power and directness. This isn't doesn't have a chariot, doesn't have a vehicle in it, and instead has this arrow, this bow and arrow, and the archer who's very precise in their aim. You can see that instead of having sphinxes pulling, there are these two wolfhounds behind, which would indicate possibly this archer is a defender rather than a hunter. And in the background, behind the hounds, you can see the tree, which is the Asherah, the one who is watching over all of this. And I love that the archer is a feminine character. You can see with the breasts. She's got her legs bound up and is girded here very carefully with a helmet, a gilded helmet. She's got the arrow on the string, is aiming very carefully, and has not yet let it loose. So she's holding on, is ready to take action, is aiming very carefully, ready to defend, while the wolfhounds, the animals in the background, are watching to protect as well in case something goes awry. It's a very powerful message about moving forward with precise aim and knowing that you are being watched over by the divine to protect what's important, and using your skill to know where to aim. So that's our first message for those of you who chose the archer, is that we are taking good aim and we are being mindful to be sure we may only have this one shot if this is a frightening prospect, if there's a wolf out there that we may need to protect ourselves from. So let's pull out some Hebrunes to further illuminate our situation here. We're going to do 3 Hebrunes and 3 Nordic runes today. And we're going to do our situation, our challenge, and our advice or outcome. So at the top we have the Aleph. In the center we have the Resh. And at the bottom we have the Tet. And then on the Nordic rune side, at the top we have the Weird, the blank. In the center we have Manas. And at the bottom we have Othala. All right. So with the position of these, at the top we're talking about what is our current situation. And on the Hebrew side we have the Aleph. And Aleph is the number 1. It's the first letter of the alphabet. So it's the beginning. It is the first letter, the mother letter of air, which represents breath in the body. It represents the wind, and it represents clarity of thought. The arrows or the swords are the suit of thought and air in the tarot. So it's breath and oneness and beginning. It's also a balance of above and below. So you have this thing that looks a little bit like a scales, and the yud above and a yud below and a vav between, which represents the divine above and the divine or humanity, divine inhumanity below, and a connection between those two. So we're starting out here at the very beginning with the Aleph, taking a breath, holding the breath. Maybe when one has an arrow on the string and is aiming, there can be a retention of the breath just before we let the arrow fly. And that arrow represents air and directness and aim and thought. So our situation here is exactly that we are taking a breath, holding our breath, creating through that aim, and shooting off either a protection or an idea out into the world. We're finding the connection between our spirit, our breath, and the thing that we are aiming toward. Aleph is the first letter of the word El, which means God. So there's a lot of divinity wrapped up in the Aleph. And interestingly, on the Nordic rune side, we have the blank, which is the word is weird in the Norse, and it's that unknown, the ultimate potential. Again, that arrow that is not yet released has that sense of we don't know where this is going. But it also represents source energy, sort of tapping into whatever arises, being open to the next thing. So at the top of our reading, we have the connection with the divine and the breath. And on the Nordic side, the potential for whatever is going to happen, the unknown, being open to all options as we set out with precision toward our goal. The center position of the letters in this reading is what's the fear or the challenge. And on the Hebrew side, we have the letter Resh. And Resh is the letter that represents the head, Rosh, like a beginning of a new thing, Rosh Hashanah. So it's got a similar feel to the Aleph. It's also connected with intellect because it is the head in the body. So our challenge here is maybe overthinking it. Our challenge is tapping into our intellect without getting wrapped up in our thoughts, knowing what's the right thing to do, using our head to move forward into the world, but also, again, not being too overthinking it. Resh is the word that shows up right in the middle of the first word of Torah, Bereshit. So it's, again, that beginning, starting. How is it challenging to start right now in this moment? Resh is the binary transformation of seed and barrenness in the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. So we have something that's coming that we don't know, that's potential. We don't know whether it's going to produce seed. We don't know whether it's going to be fruitless, whether when we let that arrow fly, it hits our target or misses. We can't know that. So our challenge is thinking too hard about what's going to happen if we miss. But just we need to stay in the moment. We need to stay focused on what's happening right now and not worry too much about the future, and not to worry too much about what has happened in the past. Keeping ourselves humble with our head bowed a little bit, making sure that we're listening. Resh is affiliated with the right ear in the body, so listening very carefully. And also it's the letter that rules over the planet Mercury in the sky, and Mercury is all about communication. So another one of our challenges might be, how do we communicate effectively and listen? Again, this is all about thought and communication arrows, so our challenge may be part of that, thinking too much and maybe not listening enough, making sure that we are communicating effectively and not being attached too much to the outcome. But starting, a challenge also might be, how do we start? We need to start by communicating. We need to start by listening more than speaking, maybe. And on the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Manaz. And Manaz is this letter that represents humanity and our place in it. It's how do we face each other's with joy. So this is a letter that looks a little bit like two uños. Uño is the letter that represents joy in the Norse, the Nordic runes. And we've got two of them face to face. And that's humanity. How do we face each other with joy? And how do we not let the din of humanity get in the way of our goal. So our challenge on the Nordic rune side is, what's our part in everything? How do we take responsibility for what it is we're doing without being overwhelmed by what everybody else is doing? It's finding, again, our place in it, our note in the song of the harmony of the world, of our species, and how we connect with others. So again, it's sort of about a communication of a different sort. Knowing our place is the challenge in this. And again, not being overwhelmed by too much noise that's coming at us. Really being able to focus, as the archer does in this card. And the final letter in our reading is the outcome or advice for our situation. On the Hebrew side, we have the letter tet. Tet is a container. It's a cup or a basket or some kind of vessel. And it is sometimes seen as a womb space, a gestation. It's the number 9 in Gematria, so it corresponds to the 9 months of pregnancy in the human body, but also the 9 shofar blasts that come at Rosh Hashanah. There's that letter Resh again, Rosh Hashanah, where things are renewed at the beginning of the year. And here we are at the new year of the trees, so this is a new year as well. And so we have renewal coming in. Tet also looks a little bit like a snake, and you can see its little head here on the left and its tail curling around. The snake, which is representative of the really ancient symbol of the goddess, which I find interesting in terms of our myths that go on about the tree and the snake in the garden. Maybe that snake is there to give us knowledge of what is right and what is wrong, so that we can discern once we are in the world. And here we are at the birthday of the trees, with the snake showing up in the tree, helping us to discern the knowledge of good and evil, helping us to know that just because we know things, we will not die, and to hold space for whatever's coming next, to have that container of gestation. And know that we're moving into a time of waiting, because even though it is the birthday of the trees and the sap is rising, it's cold outside right now. And we still have some time to wait before we see leaves and buds and flowers and fruit. So we're starting with a breath, and we're still having to wait at the end of this. And on the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Othala. And Othala represents home and legacy and homestead. It's finding our place in our comfort zone and finding our place in our home. And that may be representative of our body or our house or our family. But it's about home, and maybe even tapping into the ancestors, tapping into our lineage to find our comfort, tapping into our lineage with regards to our family, and maybe that challenges with the family in the facing each other with joy in the manas letter. That the outcome of this is comfort and homestead and feeling at place in our community, let's say, feeling like we have a place in our community. And I'm going to pull out one more card. Let me grab my Sovereign Oracle deck here. Maybe I'll scooch this down just a hair. And I'm going to shuffle and see if we have one more card to give us a little more clarity. I think this is the one just sticking out at the top there. To give us a little more clarity about our reading and what we're looking at this Tu B'Shvat. Integrity. Show consistency in your values. A fall is inevitable sometimes. Land softly. Seek your own integration. Integrity. Okay. So, big picture. We have the archer. the chariot, moving forward with precise determination, aiming our arrow either in defense or in order to hunt. In this case, it looks to me like it's a defense arrow, but you get to determine what it is for you. Having our protection of our wolves, our wolfhounds on either side, watching so that they can jump into action if need be. And again, the Asherah behind in the tree. So our archer here is moving forward. I love the number 7. Also, I didn't mention that. 7 is the magic number, the lucky number that corresponds to the Shekhinah in Hebrew. So that also says to me that the divine is here, the feminine divine in particular. And because we have a feminine archer, that we have to take our breath. We have to take a moment to breathe in this time, to find our integrity. That we're holding our breath maybe as we take aim. That we don't know what the outcome is, and that's okay. We have to be open to all possibilities right now. Our challenge is starting out and not overthinking it, and finding our place in humanity without being drowned out by the noise that comes to us from others. And our outcome is to find a place of gestation, being held in that cup, and also discerning the transformation that's coming through the snake, of the shedding of the skin, the renewal that comes with the number 9, in that 9 months of gestation, that we have a waiting period that's coming at the end of this period of time of the archer. As we let that arrow fly, there still will be a time of waiting before we know how things are going to play out. And eventually we will have this place of home, feeling a part of something, feeling like we are in comfort with our history, with our family, with our community as a whole, that we'll find our place through this forward movement, finding our integrity, that even if we do fall, we can land softly and hold on to our core values. So for those of you who chose the Archer this Tu B'Shvat, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been useful for you in your direction right now at this new year of the trees, that the sap is rising for you eventually to find leaf, flower, and fruit. And I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, card number 3. Those of you who chose the Knight of Bows, Fox. Let's take a look at our card here. The Knight of Bows. So the bows in this deck are the wands. So it's about fire, inspiration. And the Knight of Wands in traditional tarot is one who is riding off on his horse in a direction toward inspiration, holding his bow high above his head, his wand, charging off. Knights are all about forward movement and putting things into action. In this card, we have the fox, and he's got his eyes closed. He's got a little smile on his face. Foxes are known to be cunning and sometimes a little tricksy. He's beautiful red fur. I love that with the idea of the fire, the inspiration. He seems to be sitting. He's not running. He's kind of curled up almost in the sunshine, enjoying maybe recharging from his adventures of the night. And he's sitting among the roots of this tree with the beautiful Asherah tree shading over him in this picture. And I love this for the birthday of the trees, being sheltered by that tree, even in our rest. The Knight of Bows is about, moving forward with inspiration. And we have this wild fox contemplating. He's got his eyes closed. He's taking some time in contemplation before running off with inspiration toward whatever goal that he needs to find here. And sitting amongst the roots, being sheltered by the divine, by the tree, by the Asherah. So our first message here is we've got a quest. The nights are always about quests. We've got a quest coming, and it's important for us to tap in to the earth, tap into the tree, and tap into our own self. His ears are perked up. I like that. He's not resting with his ears down. So he's listening. He's listening to the wind. He's listening to the tree before he sets off on the quest. So maybe that's our first message here, is even though we've got an inspiration that we are listening for, it's take some time to contemplate before we rush off toward whatever direction we need to go. I'm going to pull out some Hebrunes today and some Nordic runes. We'll do 3 of each. And we'll start with the Hebrew. We're going to start with at the top is what our current situation is. And for that, we have the letter Dalet. In the center is our fear or challenge. And we have the letter Tzadi. And at the bottom is our outcome or advice in this time. And we have the letter Nun. Interesting. I am shuffling these. You're seeing this, but I have some of the same letters from other readings. On the Nordic rune side, our current position is the blank again. Wow, I am shuffling these. In the center, we have algaes. And at the bottom, we have Othala. Wow, so interesting. We have a lot of the same letters from both the first and the second reading in this third reading. So if you're drawn at all to any of the other cards, you might want to go back and watch those readings as well. But let's look at this reading. So Knight of Bows, inspiration, moving forward, but in this particular card, sitting in contemplation before doing so. And where we are right now on the Hebrew side is the letter Dalet, and Dalet is a doorway. So it's about transitions. Something is changing, something is shifting. We're about to go through a doorway. And that could be a literal doorway, as like we're heading out into the world, or it can be the doorway of a birth or a death, something where we were letting something go. Whatever the case is, we're passing through some space that's unknown. And I find that really interesting because on the Nordic rune side, we have the unknown. Dalet is about humility and finding wisdom and foolishness. It's the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness in the Sefer Yetzirah. So going through a doorway, dal means poor or humble. So we have to find our humility as we head through our gate or our doorway. And we have to determine whether we're going to be wise or foolish as we step forth. And dal is the number 4 in Gematria, so it has the sense of all things 4 seasons, 4 elements, 4 directions. As we pass through a doorway, we have the potential for any different direction. We're coming to like this crossroads of determining, will we go east, west, north, or south? And what will we take with us as we go through that doorway? And how can we tap in to the divine as we step through the doorway? We have in Jewish households a mezuzah on most doorways where we touch to remind ourselves that we carry the divine with us as we pass through transitions. So our current position right now as the Knight of Bows is we're in a liminal space. We're in this waiting space between one world and the next. And on the Nordic rune side, we have the blank, which is saying there's infinite potential. We don't know. We need to be open to all possibilities. The doorway is open that we are stepping through. And we need to understand that we can't always know what's going to be on the other side of that doorway. And we can embrace that unknowing. We can embrace this infinity, this infinite potential. The blank can also be seen as as a connection with the spirit, connection with the unknown, connection with the allness, the wholeness of the universe. In the Nordic runes, this is sometimes known as the rune weird, because it is sort of this unknown, this thing that is weird. We don't know what's happening. That's where the word weird comes from. It's spelled W-Y-R-D, and we are going into a weird time. We're going into an unknown time. Maybe that which has all the potential. In the center, as I said, these are both the position of what is a fear or a challenge. On the left side, we have the letter Tzadi. Tzadi is the letter that is representative of the month of Shvat, which is where we are right now. It is a letter that looks like a tree. It has that earth across the bottom and a trunk that comes up and branches and leaves and or fruit at the top. And so it represents to me the Asherah herself, this tree that's behind the fox. And it's the first letter of the word tzedek, which means justice. Also, it is the letter that is affiliated with the tribe of Asher, which is related to this month. The month of Shvat is Asher's month. Asher means happy. It's one of the tribes of Israel, and it was named by Zilpah, who was a handmaid of Jacob and Leah. So she gave birth to her son. She named him Asher, and there are some who believe that she named him after the Asherah, the tree goddess herself. So our challenge here is this month, our time in this month of Shvat, and our time of finding justice within the things that we are doing, of becoming righteous, being a righteous one, of tapping into maybe our happiness. Asher means happy. So our challenge and our fear is like, maybe we're afraid that things won't turn out for the best. Maybe we're afraid that we won't be happy. Maybe we're afraid that there won't be justice that is served. And that's a challenge to work with. Dalit is also a challenge because it is a gateway that we have to pass through. So we need to tap into that tree, really listen in right now when we're challenged. Listen in to the messages coming from the Asherah. And I love that the fox is doing that right now, sitting on her roots and with its eyes closed, with its ears perked up, listening to the goddess. On the Nordic rune side, our fear or challenge is algiz. And algiz is the elk. You can see it looks a little bit like an antler. And the elk is about protection. So on the Nordic rune side, we have a concern, a fear, or a challenge around protection. Are we protected? Do we feel like we have the inner reserves? Are we being surrounded with community that is wise and loving? Do we have appropriate protections up as we charge forward once we open our eyes and determine what direction to go? And that is a challenge. We don't know. We can't know. It's unknown. So we need to sit with it. We need to sit at the foot of the tree, sit on the foot of the tree, and understand that the divine is here protecting us whether we see it or not. But the challenge, I can see that, the fear of, I don't know if things are going to be okay. I can't know what direction I'm going once I step through the doorway. And our outcome at the bottom, our advice here, we have the letter Nun on the Hebrew side. Nun is the letter that represents Ne'aman, which is humility, some kind of loyalty, faithfulness. But sitting, like this looks like a person who is kneeling and with their head bowed, exactly like this fox, sitting in contemplation, listening in. And you'll notice that Tzadi looks a little bit like a nun that's bent over with a yud at its back. So in order to find justice, we need to sit in humility, sit in contemplation, find our hermit space, as it were, and listen in. Listen to the messages coming to us from the trees, from the nature, from the fire even, as Bose is the fire sign. Maybe the fire sign needs to rest right now. It's said at this time of year, those 3 coals are thrown down from heaven to warm the air and the earth and the sap in the trees. That's the inspiration. That's the fire that's underneath, that's inside right now. But we need to sit in humility in order to hear it, in order to find it. And Nun is also the first letter of the word Nes, which means miracle. So our outcome here is humility and miracles coming to us. Humility 3 times almost. Dalet is also Dal is poor. Tzadi has got that Nun right within it, and Nun is humility. So, and the fox sitting in his humbleness as well, even though he's the knight of bows, even though he's the knight of wands, who usually is rushing forward, taking time to relax, to sit and listen in humility before setting out. Seems to be the primary message of this. And on the Nordic rune side, our outcome is Othala, which is home. It's finding comfort in our home space, finding our place in our lineage from the ancestors. Maybe it's time to have a chat with the ancestors. But even though we might be afraid that we're not protected, comfort is what's the outcome here, and the advice is to be at home, sit in our home space, and find comfort amongst our lineage and our heritage and our legacy. And this is a beautiful reading. I'm going to do one more card from the Sovereign Oracle deck just to get one more message for us for this day of Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees. And let's see what's our final message from our fox here today, and from our tree. Oh, there she is. Okay. And we have genius. Acknowledge the kindness of your muses. Create time and space for flow. Release your pressure to perform. It's not all up to you. Genius. So, yeah, Knight of Bows, Knight of Wands is the card of inspiration rushing forward. And the message I'm hearing from this card is we need to recognize what's our support. We need to recognize that the divine is our support. That sitting in humility is going to be the thing that gives us the time and space for moving forward and to our flow. And to not to believe that it's not all on us. That we have this inspiration, maybe we'll rush forward to it. But we have community surrounding us, family and home. That the divine is a support behind us. The Asherah is our tree. That we can't control what we can't control. That the unknown is the unknown. And recognize that it's not all up to me. It's not all up to you. That we need to sit in contemplation and use our wise savviness that comes with being a fox to be clever, but also to give back the glory, whatever it is, for that performance goes back to the divine, goes back to the Asherah. So, beautiful reading for those of you who chose the Knight of Bows and Fox. Find your humility, step through the doorway, look for justice, and tap into the Asherah on this Tu B'Shvat. Again, and bring us to a place of humility and miracles. That even though we don't know what's happening right now, even though we can't see the outcome of everything, and we have a concern about whether we are protected, know that in the end, we'll find our place. We'll find our home and our legacy in our community, in our family, and find our genius moving forward in inspiration. So for those of you who chose the Knight of Bows, Fox, this has been your reading. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you have a beautiful Tu B'Shvat, even though the trees are barren and the snow is coming down where I am and the ice is forming. That underneath it all, the spring will come. It always has. It always will. And we'll see you here next time.